any reimbursement policies. If we do not handle reimbursements for this trip, this message would not show up. In this case, we have $50 per day. The goal here is to provide the traveler with as much information as possible prior to the day of travel so that they feel prepared. We do survey our travelers, and one of the pieces of feedback that we get often is that they're so grateful for how prepared they felt and that there were no questions left for the day of travel, so that they could rather focus on the interview, the reason for their trip. The last thing we'll send them well in advance of the day of travel is a text message. The important note on the chat window you're seeing on the right-hand side, one, it is fully supported by Pana agents. Two, those agents are real people. And three, they're available 24/7, 365 at absolutely no additional charge to you and your team. So we like this to be extremely conversational. The more that the traveler leverages us, generally the better that experience is. They're feeling comfortable, they have all of their questions answered, and we get a lot of positive reviews there. So we'll send them this in text messages. This is a text-based platform. You can access this via email, text message, or in the web application that you're seeing it in now. And all of those different chat messages will aggregate in the window, so there's a consistent thread of conversation. Once it is appropriate, we will prompt them to check in for their flight with a brief link. And then on the day of travel, we'll also alert them whether or not their flight is on time or delayed. Now, a critical feature here, and one of the favorite features of our coordinator clients who are coordinating many, many interviews, is that our team can be the first line of defense against any sort of issue. So if the flight is delayed, we can have backup policy in place to let us know how you'd like to handle that. And we can look to get them on a flight that still gets them there on time for their interview. Or if they're stranded overnight, we can book them in a hotel to ensure that they aren't left sleeping in the airport. Bottom line is, though, your team knows that that traveler is never stranded or under-resourced. Rather, Pana is helping, and we're notifying your team, letting them know that we take care of it. A key piece of this is that we are generally the first line of defense, or we are the first source of the information that your flight is delayed. So we skip that moment of panic where a person wonders, oh, my flight is delayed, I'm going to miss my interview, what do I do? We're rather telling them, your flight is delayed, and Pana's already looking into options for you. We've coordinated with the company to make sure you're taken care of, right? Now, once we have the traveler land, we'll welcome them to their destination, remind them again to submit receipts if we're handling that for you. And the last thing we'll do on the way there, as a nice touch to simply extend your brand to that traveler before they even walk in the door, is offer some custom recommendations for things like cafes or restaurants in the area. Maybe they need to grab a bite to eat. We've also heard that this provides great small talk conversation once they walk in the door to help them feel welcome. Oh, I went to Italy in New York. Looks like your team goes there a lot and loves it. Helps them to feel welcome. So we're always looking for those extra touches to improve the experience. We'll do the same exact thing on the way back, including sending out the survey I mentioned, which will gather a star rating. Pana, as you should know, does have a 4.9 out of 5 star rating on these trips, which drives some of the statistics that Jeff had shown earlier around acceptance of offer letters and the efficiency that we're going to provide in your system. Now, the last thing I want to show is if throughout any of the process, someone were to click the submit receipts or this reimbursements button that is always present in the top right-hand corner, they would be presented with the screen that you see here. Now, again, the majority of our clients, or our travelers, excuse me, are accessing this platform on their phone, right? They receive the initial email, they click the big blue button in the email, and they're brought immediately into that traveler experience on their phone. Oftentimes we see from user testing that they simply leave that open in a browser window. So when they come to submit receipts, they're clicking upload image and they're simply taking a photo with their phone. They'll select the trip that they were on, the category, and manually enter an amount. Our team will match up those amounts and then we'll ensure that it matches the policy you have in place with us. If it does match the policy, then we will actually kick off that reimbursement ourselves. And we can manage that through direct deposit or mailing a check. If direct deposit, we will reimburse within 3 to 5 business days. Or if mailing a check, it generally can go up to about 7 days simply due to the mailing process. So that is the extent of the Pana experience through our demonstration. I appreciate the attention. I'll switch back over the presentation here and simply open up some time for questions, or if there have been any questions that came in while I was giving the presentation, I'd love to answer those.
Great, thank you so much for that, Alex. I'm just looking here for some questions here. So Alex, just a couple questions with regards to the solution that you have here.
Jeff, a question came in from chat. Are you able to check travelers into their flights?
So we do not check them into the flight, but we provide the means for them to check into the flight. So we'll send that link, and they then can just click on the link and will be prompted to check in.
Great. Another question popped up here. Alex, how long is the implementation for the tool?
Yeah, great question. So the general estimate that we give is 6 weeks. There can be some variation depending on the complexity of the integration, in which that time could actually go down if it's very simple. However, if there are many things you'd like to customize within Pana, it could be slightly longer. And then there are integration considerations that need to be made between Pana and Edelman. So depending on some of the backlog there, but we generally look at it taking around 6 weeks at most.
And if I could add to that as well, is the integration with Pana is, if you're an existing customer, is seamless. We will leverage policy. We will leverage all supplier agreements. In addition to that, visibility to reporting with regards to the bookings that are being made through Pana.
Great. Alex, we have a dual question here. Does Pana find it challenging to answer all communication is powered by live humans, and how is this scalable?
Yeah, that's probably one of the most common questions we get, because it does seem very difficult. We manage thousands of trips per month, and each of those travelers has questions. The answer is that there is a lot of technology built in the background of Pana that empowers our agent team. So we do have live humans answering these questions. You'll notice throughout the process, there might be a question or two if I flip back to the screen here. Some of the messaging, like a flight check-in message, or this message here, might be automated and presented to our agent team, but then they are reviewing it for context. They understand the conversation that's happened with the traveler, and then if there ever is a question that comes in, it's a real person responding in actual language back to them, right? So we've essentially automated as many pieces of the puzzle as we can while maintaining the personalized touch and human interaction, right? And the technology we've built to empower our agents on the back end is what makes that possible. The other key feature for our agents is that they are not actually operating in the GDS. We do have GDS trained agents who can handle any sort of complex changes if needed, but the majority of the time our technology is able to present that to one of our agents who is focused on customer service and making that trip as solid as possible. That also allows us to scale that agent team very rapidly, as opposed to having to go through a fairly lengthy training process. So great question there. Hopefully that helps, but please ask a follow-up question if there are any details I missed.
The next question we got in is, what is the cost of this service?
Yes, and that's actually a detail that we allow our partners at Edelman to handle. They have a relationship with you, and there's a lot of context around cost. So I can tell you that the off-the-shelf cost that we've referenced is $79 per trip, but that can be contingent upon many different factors that we'd need to discuss on an individual basis.
Yeah, and just to add to that, so we would have a further conversation and evaluate the need that you have, and there's subscription pricing that we would discuss with you. That's all inclusive of all the services that we're talking about, but it's really understanding the needs that you have and to have a further discovery call to ensure that the cost and also the subscription is covering everything that you're looking for Pana to provide you.
Yeah, I think one important note Jeff touches on there is that Pana is an inclusive service, so we don't charge per message. There is no communication charge with our team. There are no after-hours teams. The service that I'm showing you today is essentially inclusive, as you'll see when we discuss pricing in more detail. So we try and take the variability out, as what we've seen from guest travelers is that there tends to be more complexity and more variability. So we like to provide some sanity for you in giving as simple a pricing structure as possible.
Okay, the next question, we've actually got a couple questions from this person. So how is the company billed for the charges by the candidates? So I'll let you answer that one first.
Yeah, so this is actually it can be one of the more detailed conversations we get into, generally because there are some very particular methodologies that are preferred by the client, right? So Pana has a pretty high degree of flexibility, including different virtual card payments, credit card payments, pre-funded accounts. There are any number of ways you can actually pay for travel through Pana, because we understand that many times accounting and finance departments have very specific needs around that. So we try and be flexible there, and it's without trying to seem as if I'm deflecting the question, there are a lot of different options, and we generally are able to find at least one that works.
Okay, great. Can we use our preferred airline carriers for flight options, and what is in place for handling policy exceptions?
Yes, you can. So that's one of, again, the benefits of the Edelman partnership is that we already understand those. We'll work with them. So all rates and vendors, preferred vendors are already recognized. And then for things that would fall outside of policy, one of the key features you may have noticed with Pana is that the only options presented to the traveler are those that are within policy, vendors, and budget, right? Now we have to remember that a lot of times this is an interviewee or this is a guest traveler. They don't know your policy. So we do see these travelers being much more willing to simply take what is presented to them. In the instance that that is not the case, and they were to go outside of the Pana platform and maybe through an outside vendor, find a flight that they prefer and present that to our agents, there is an approval workflow that our agent team would go through. They would never simply book that flight without your approval. They would go back to the designated approver on your side, submit the flight, and then your team could say, yes, we can approve them to take that flight, or no, please direct them back to the provided options.
Okay, the next question that we have might be along the same lines. If we request a trip for a specific day, but that day just happens to be a very busy day for hotel occupancy in our city, and our prices are beyond our range, how does your team handle that? Do you reach back out to the company booking coordinator?
That's absolutely right. So if we were to have a limited number of hotel options within a designated city, and none of the policy, none of the hotels could accommodate the policy that you have established with Pana, we would then look to you for approval on booking outside of that policy. Generally, we'll look to have a fairly lengthy series of variable or contingent options so that we don't run into that scenario, but it does happen on occasion, and in that instance, we will look to the approver rather than trying to book outside your policy for an expense you might not be willing to accommodate.
Okay, Alex, you mentioned a virtual card for hotels and contacting that hotel directly. The client has had issues, or the client or prospect has had issues in the past with hotels saying that they have not received the virtual faxes. How do you handle that for a traveler that is trying to check in?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great comment, and I tried to touch on it a bit, but I appreciate somebody bringing it up specifically. The virtual card process for hotels, and there are many different vendors out there who will propose to manage a hotel booking process through virtual cards and have a fairly low acceptance rate due to either the hotel claiming that they did not receive a virtual card email or authentication, or that they simply are unwilling to accommodate. Pana does actually leverage our agent team to help account for this in those phone call processes. So we're aware of acceptance rates. Sometimes you hear in the 85% range for certain virtual card processes. Pana's team will actually call the hotel in question 2 times prior to check-in and then once after check-in to ensure that the correct method of payment was used, that virtual card was used. And if there is a disagreement,